Okay, I've got 4 strings and I'm tuned to C, F, F and F. One of the most bizarre guitar tunings I think I've ever come across, and this can mean only one thing: that I'm going to be looking at the guitar playing of Ricky Wilson. And I don't mean that bloke from the Kaiser Chiefs, I mean the legendary guitar player from the B52s. And he was a total one-off. I'm actually a little bit nervous about making this video just because he had such a unique approach to the guitar. I'm not sure I can replicate it exactly, but I hope we're going to have some fun, and I'm going to try to get to the bottom of what he's playing in one of the B52's most famous songs, Rock Lobster. Let me start by playing through the track, and I'm going to play a bit of an abbreviated version. The original is 7 minutes long, but I'll try and get all of the good guitar bits in there, and then we can talk some more about this amazing guitar player. There we go. What a mad song this is. Even without the vocals on it, it's still pretty bonkers, I think, in the best possible way. So the B52s from Athens, Georgia, they formed in the mid-70s, and this particular song, Rock Lobster, was on their debut album, which came out in 1979. And I believe there are several recordings of this tune, but this video is very much based on the recording that you find on that first record. So let's get started. I'm going to talk about the tuning to begin with, then I'll take you through how to play the main riff, which is fairly straightforward, and then I'll get into some of the other riffs which you can hear in this song, some of which I think are quite challenging, certainly challenging for me to get to sound exactly like the record. Let's discuss this tuning then. And one of the big trademarks of Ricky Wilson's sound was this unusual approach to guitar tunings, quite radical tunings, often omitting several strings from the guitar, and there's quite a lot of good information online on this. There was a list of tunings which was very helpful. That kind of gave me a starting point when I was making this video. And this particular tuning, C, F, F and F. I think he's used on a couple of songs, if not more, but he used quite a wide range of different tunings over the course of his career with the B52s. Now, unfortunately, there's not really an easy way to get into this tuning. It's quite radically different from standard tuning, so the best thing to do is just to use a tuner or to use my strings as a reference pitch. And you might be thinking, well, is it really worth bothering getting into this tuning? Isn't there an easy way to do it? And not really, if you want to get the sound of the record. So I suggest you have a try. It's quite an interesting tuning to explore. So start by tuning your 6th string down, and it's gone quite a long way down from an E to a low C. And then the same thing with the 5th string. That's gone from an A down to an F. And then I've taken off strings 3 and 4 altogether, and the top 2 strings are again tuned down, and tuned down quite a long way to F, and these 2 strings are actually tuned to the same note. At first I thought, when I was reading up on the tuning, that they might be in octaves, so you had a kind of a high F on top, but that's not the case. You've got these 2 strings in unison on top. So what's going on with this tuning? And part of me was thinking, when I came across these weird tunings, what's the point of this? And maybe he's just being kind of deliberately weird or willfully eccentric with these tunings. But once you try a few of them, you actually realise that all of the character of the songs and of the B52's music comes from these tunings, and it's really quite amazing once you start playing around with them, and there's loads and loads of character in these tunings. And what you find with this particular tuning is you've obviously got the 2 lower strings tuned quite a long way down, so you've almost got kind of a baritone guitar character on those strings. They are tuned in a 4th, so it's not completely kind of strange to be playing in this tuning. You can play kind of normal things on these strings, like power chords, and he's playing these kind of 4th inverted power chords on the lower strings as well. And it's obviously great for those twangy kind of surf inspired riffs. And then you've got these droning strings on top, and he's often playing those kind of in unison on top, which really gives this great sound. It kind of thickens up the sound, but it's also got this lovely kind of chorusy effect happening. Now, if I had the time and the patience, I probably would have set this guitar up a little bit for this new tuning. I did actually put some new strings on and some slightly thicker strings. I think when you're tuned down this far, it's quite a good idea to put some heavier gauge strings on, and then you get a little bit more string tension. But even with that, I'm getting a little bit of buzz here, and the guitar's not quite playing perfectly. I think if you are serious about playing in these kind of tunings, then you probably want to select your string gauges carefully, and then set up the guitar specifically for these tunings. But I think this is going to be good enough for today's lesson. Once you're in tune, the main riff is actually quite straightforward to play. As I just said, the 2 lowest strings are in the usual relationship to one another. It's just tuned down to give you that baritonish sound. So we've got this. Starting on the 6th string, open, 2, 3, 2, open, and then over onto the 5th string. It's 3, open, 3, and 2. And you want that nice twangy sound, so I suggest picking fairly close to the bridge, picking quite hard as well. And as far as how you pick this, I would recommend picking it like this. So down, 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 up, down, up, down, up. I think that just makes the riff flow nicely. You've got the picking direction going with the rhythm, so down on the strong beats, up on the ands or the up beats. So that's the intro riff. It's also the riff for the first verse. Then we've got another riff, which is just a series of single notes, just repeated single notes really. So starting off on the open 6th string, a bar's worth of 8th notes on that, then 3rd fret, 3 on the 5th string, and 2 on the 5th string. We're just repeating that. And again. And then on the 3rd time, you got one of these top strings making an appearance. We've got open 2nd string to 3rd fret. And at first I thought this was an overdub, but really this is part of the character of this tuning, that it does sometimes sound like 2 guitars playing at once. You've almost got the rhythm guitar or the bass on the lower strings, and then you've got these droning strings playing kind of melodies or other parts on the top strings, and it does create this illusion of two parts. But I'm pretty sure that Ricky Wilson is playing all of this stuff just in one single part. So what you have to do is when you come down to this second fret note here, you can just let your pick come through and hit that second string as well. So something along those lines. Then the riff continues. It's the same notes, but we're just playing 2 beats on each of them now. So and then just twice on each of those notes. And then ending with just 3 to 2 on the 5th string. So it's that classic kind of building feeling. You've got the same notes, but you're kind of compressing them. There's probably a musical term for that, sort of compressing a kind of melody. I'm not sure exactly what the term is. I should probably know it, but I don't. But you get the idea. It's got that feeling of just building the intensity before we return back to the main riff. And then I think we go around again. There's a main riff. There's another verse. There's that whole single note section again, and then we're into another new section. I'm going to describe this as a bridge section for want of a better term, and that's the bit that goes like this. So leading into the bridge, the 5th fret on the 5th string, so 5, 6, and then we hit this 7th fret note here. There seems to be just an odd bar of 2 beats there, and then it goes back to 4 times. So and then we're hitting this note here, and then playing the same note down an octave just on the open 6th string. And just then going back and forth between those 2 notes. So it's that same thing that's happening before, the same 2 notes, but we're just changing the amount of time we're spending on each of those notes. Next we've got this great breakdown section, and this is just played on these top 2 strings, and you're playing these strings in unison, starting at the 12th fret. So I'm just flattening down my first finger across both of those strings, and then we're just coming down chromatically. So just coming all the way down. Playing that with alternate strokes of the pick. Down to the 1st fret, and then once you reach the 1st fret, I'm just adding some open strings in there. So very simple, but it's got a great sound. There's something about just this kind of unison drone sound of those top strings. They're just sort of chorusing together slightly. It's kind of hard to get those strings exactly in tune, and that's the point of this. I think you've got that slightly chorusy sound, which I think sounds great. Let's move on and talk about some of the riffs that are happening towards the end of the song then. And for me, these are kind of the most challenging riffs, and this is where the character of this tuning really comes through. He's kind of going between the lower strings and the higher strings in this kind of funky, punky kind of a way. It's just really, really cool and quite hard to reproduce, but this is what I think is going on. The first riff you hear in the end section of the tune goes something like this. We've got so we've got this kind of power chord riff played on the lowest string. So just open 3 and 5. I'm just barring across both of those strings. And what you've got here is a power chord, or it's an inverted power chord really, because you've got the kind of the root on the 5th string and then the 5th on the lowest string. It's almost a kind of smoke on the water vibe here. That kind of effect happening here. So we've got just keeping this strumming hand moving. You've got some funky scratches in there as well. A couple of hits on those open strings just played in unison, the open top strings. And then back to the lower strings. But slight variation on that riff, and then just one hit on top. The important thing here, I think, is just to keep your strumming hand moving, play reasonably hard, stay relaxed, and you get that nice kind of funky but loose feel happening. Then as the last part of the song builds, we've got this riff. So that's quite simple. It's just the open lowest strings going to then the 3rd fret. I think the 5th string is kind of muted most of the time. You might sometimes be playing that note though. And then I think my favourite part in the tune is where he goes like this. That kind of idea. So we've kind of got these two parts happening at the same time. You've got these low chords, the open strings, and the 3rd fret, and then he's got this droning thing happening on the top strings at the 3rd fret, 2nd fret, and going down to the open string. So the trick is to kind of get both of those things happening at once. And he seems to be going between the low strings and then the high strings. So it's this kind of idea. Quite hard to replicate exactly, but just keep that hand moving and kind of going between the higher strings and the lower strings, just mixing those up a little bit. Then we've got a similar riff, but the whole sound tightens up and it's a little bit more muted. So we've got same kind of idea. We've got the open strings to the 3rd fret on the lower strings, and then we've got these open droning strings, and then so I'll do that slowly and you can kind of see how it works. But we've got of course you want those funky scratches in there as well, so I'm just laying my fretting hand across all of those strings to keep them muted. I think those are the main riffs in this tune. There are of course lots of subtleties and nuances in there as well, so you can kind of get into those if you want to just by listening closely to the recording, but I suggest just getting into this tuning, having a go. Of course you can't reproduce exactly how Ricky Wilson plays, but it's a lot of fun trying, I think. Let me talk about the gear that I'm using today, and Ricky Wilson seemed to have quite a large number of different guitars. For this particular song he seemed to favour a Moss-Wright guitar, kind of Ramones style, which always looks super cool. I think I haven't got one of those, but I'm using my Jazzmaster today. I think it works reasonably well on this tune. It's got a nice twangy kind of a sound, so I haven't set it up specifically for this tune, so these strings are actually flapping around a little bit too much. There's a little bit of buzzing going on, but it's kind of close enough. Were I to get deeply into this style, I probably would select my string gauges a bit more carefully and set up the guitar so it's sort of sounding a little bit more perfect. It's quite a clean sound on the recording, so what I decided to do today is go straight into my Fender Princeton. No effects at all. I have got some spring reverb on the amp, and I'm also going to add a little bit of extra reverb when I mix the audio to this video as well. That's it for this video. Hope you enjoyed it. If you would like Tab and my backing track, those are going to be up on the old Patreon page. Thanks very much for watching. I'll see you next time.